It is November. You walk to the spice aisle of the grocery store and there it is, a small jar of ground ginger. 2 Oz, $6. The jar next to it, dried ginger root, $8 for less than a hand-sized pile. The fresh ginger root at the produce counter, $40 a pound. And the same fresh ginger root in a basket marked organic at the natural food store down the road is $20 a pound. You buy a small piece. You use a teaspoon of it for stir fry on Tuesday, another teaspoon for a chicken soup on Friday when one of the children has a cold. By Sunday, the rest of the piece has dried out and gone fibrous in the back of the icebox. The $4 is gone. And next month, when you need ginger for a cake or a tea or a stomach-settling remedy, you walk back to the grocery store and pay another $4 for a piece that will last about a week. Now I want you to sit with this. There is a small piece of the very ginger you just bought, a single chunk no bigger than your thumb, costing about $2 at any grocery store, that if you put it in a pot of dirt in a sunny corner of your kitchen or your porch, will become a plant. And in 8 to 10 months, that plant will give you back 1 to 2 oldie of fresh ginger, enough to cook with all winter, enough to dry into powder for the spice cupboard, enough to share with a neighbor, and enough to plant the next year's crop from the rhizomes you saved for $2 forever, as long as you keep saving a piece each season. I am a traditional farmer who works the land and follows the old ways of growing. Ginger is not a local crop here. It is a tropical plant from far across the world, grown for thousands of years in India and China, in Southeast Asia, long before my ancestors came over from the old country. But it lives by the oldest rule my grandfather taught me. Grow what you eat, save what you grow, and never pay the store for what your own soil can give you. My family and I keep a pot of ginger going in the back room of the house through the cold months on the south-facing windowsill where the sun comes in. And we have not bought ginger from the store in many years. I will be honest with you about the bold word in the title. Folks will tell you a huge harvest. The plain truth is that one good pot gives you a steady year's supply for a kitchen. 1 to 2 pounds of fresh ginger, which is enough to cook with, to dry into powder, to use as medicine, and to save a piece for next year's planting. That is not a truckload, but it is more than the grocery store ever gave you for what you paid. And it never stops because every year's plant gives you next year's planting. That is the honest math. Quick word before we go further. One thing before I go on. The old methods I share on this channel, there is too much of it to fit in any single video. So I put the whole of it together in a guide online for the folks who want the long version. I will not mention it again here. If you want it, you know where to look. Now let me show you how it is done. Let me first tell you what ginger actually is because folks call it a root, and it is not a root. And once you understand the plain difference, the growing makes simple sense. The piece of ginger you pick up at the store, that knobby brown thing with the little bumps on it, is not a root. It is what the botanists call a rhizome, which is a thick underground stem. The plant grows shoots up out of it and roots down out of it. But the rhizome itself is the main stem of the plant lying sideways under the ground. That matters because it tells you how to plant it. A potato you bury deep, 6 or 8 in down in the soil. A carrot you let push down a foot into the loose dirt. Ginger you plant shallow, just under the surface because the rhizome is meant to lie sideways, not stand up. The whole plant grows wide rather than deep, which is why the container you use should be wide and shallow, not narrow and deep. A wash tub on its side gives you better ginger than a tall flower pot. Width is what matters. And the small brown bumps you see on the ginger at the store, those are called eyes, the same word the old folks use for the sprouting points on a seed potato. Every eye is a place where a new shoot will come up. The more eyes on the piece you plant, the more shoots, the more growth, the more ginger you grow back. So when you go to the store to pick your starter piece, look for the chunkiest, knobbiest piece in the bin with as many of those little bumps as you can find. Sometimes they will already be starting to sprout pale green or yellowish tips poking out of the bumps. Those are the best starter pieces of all. Pay your $2 or $3, take it home, and you have everything you need. Here is what to plant your ginger in. A wide, shallow container, at least 12 inches across, but bigger is better. A 14 or 16-in flower pot is ideal. A wash tub set on the porch is even better. The container needs holes in the bottom for drainage. Ginger likes moisture, but rots if water sits around its rhizome. 3 or 4 holes drilled in the bottom of any wash tub or bucket will do the work. Fill the container with good, rich potting soil, the kind that is loose enough that you can sift it through your fingers, with plenty of compost or peat or coconut coir mixed in. Ginger is hungry. It wants a rich, loamy soil full of organic matter, the same kind you would use for a happy tomato plant. Plain garden dirt packed hard is what kills container ginger most often. Loose, rich, and well-drained. Those are the 3 words. A small handful of well-rotted compost mixed into the top inch of soil at planting time gives the plant a slow, steady food supply through the growing months. I add a second handful of compost about 6 weeks in when the shoots are well up, and that is usually all the fertilizing it needs. Here is how to plant the rhizome. Take your piece of ginger from the grocery store. If it is a big, chunky piece with many eyes, you can plant the whole thing as one, and you will get more shoots faster. If it is a long, stick-shaped piece with a few eyes, you can break it into 2 or 3 smaller chunks, each with at least 1 or 2 eyes, and plant them each as their own little plant in their own corner of the pot. Before you plant, let the cut surfaces dry for a day or 2 in a warm, dry spot on your kitchen counter. This lets the cuts callus over and prevents the rhizome from rotting in the soil. Call it a 1-day rest. The old farmers do the same thing with seed potatoes before planting them. Then dig a shallow trench in your soil, only about 1 inch deep, and lay the rhizome down flat, eyes pointing up. Cover it with about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of soil, not deeper. Press the soil down gently with your palm. Water it lightly. Do not soak it. The piece has no roots yet, so it cannot drink much water, and too much water around a non-rooted rhizome is what causes the rot you wanted to avoid. That is the whole planting. Now you wait. For the first few weeks, you will see nothing. This is the part where folks lose their patience. The ginger is doing its work below ground, putting out roots, beginning to send up the first shoots toward the soil surface, but on top it looks like a pot of dirt. Be patient. 3 to 8 weeks is normal before you see the first green shoots poke up. Some pieces sprout in 2 weeks, some take 6. Both will give you the same amount of ginger by the end of the season. Once the shoots appear, the plant grows fast. Tall, grassy-looking green stems with long, pointed leaves. A thick clump that by midsummer can stand 3 or 4 feet tall. The leaves have a faint, sweet ginger smell when you brush them. The plant likes warmth. 70 degrees to 90 degrees during the day is its happy range, and it likes dappled shade rather than full hot sun. A shaded porch, the east-facing side of a house, under the canopy of a fruit tree, or a south window indoors all work well. Before we go on to the watering and the harvest, let me pause for a moment. If this video helped you see one place your home may be wasting money, join our traditional home saving system and community. Inside, we help you work through the rest. Groceries, utilities, laundry, repairs, pantry waste, cleaning, and monthly home routines. The link is in the description. Now let me show you the rest of the growing season and the harvest. Water the plant consistently. About 1 inch of water a week is the rule of thumb. Keep the soil evenly moist but never soaking wet. In hot, dry weather, you may need to water every other day. In cool, damp weather, once a week is plenty. If the top inch of soil feels dry to your finger, water. If it still feels moist, wait. A 2-in layer of mulch on top of the soil, straw, leaves, wood chips, even shredded newspaper, holds in the moisture and keeps the rhizome cool. This is one of the most important things you can do for container ginger. Mulch keeps the soil from drying out between waterings and steadies the temperature for the rhizome to grow. About 3 or 4 months in, you will see the rhizome starting to push up around the edges of the pot. The soil cracks slightly where the rhizome is expanding sideways. This is a good sign. The plant is doing its work. About harvesting. You have 2 ways to harvest ginger, and both have their place. The first way is the gentle way, and this is what I do most of the time. Once the plant has been growing 4 or 5 months and is well established, you can carefully reach down into the soil at the edge of the pot. Find a piece of the rhizome that has grown out to the side and break off a chunk for the kitchen. The plant keeps growing. The rhizome keeps spreading. You can take a little ginger from the pot every couple of weeks all through the late growing season, and the plant never goes down. I think of it the way I think of cutting branches off a strawberry bed. Take what you need, leave the plant strong. The second way is the full harvest, and this is what you do at the end of the growing season, especially in cold country, where the plant will die back in winter anyway. About 8 to 10 months after planting, when the leaves start to yellow and the plant is going dormant, pull up the whole rhizome. The cluster you pull up will be much bigger than what you planted. The original $2 chunk has multiplied into a knotted mass, weighing 1 to 2 lb of fresh ginger. Wash the soil off gently with cool water. Let it dry on a towel for a day. Save 2 or 3 of the best chunks with strong eyes for next year's planting. Store them wrapped in a dry paper bag in a cool, dark place. A root cellar at 55 degrees perfect. The rest is your kitchen ginger for the year. The next part, drying it for the spice cupboard. Fresh ginger keeps in the ice box for 2 or 3 weeks, or in a paper bag in the cellar for a month or so. But the way to make a single harvest last a whole year is to dry it. This is kitchen work that should be a quiet practice. Take a portion of the harvested ginger, peel off any bruised or rough skin, and slice it thin, about 1/8 of an inch thick. Uniform slices dry at the same rate, which matters for the next step. The drying. Here is the off-grid way to do it. You can lay the slices on a clean wooden tray or a screen, set them in a warm, dry place out of direct sun, the warming oven of a wood stove on a low fire, or the top of a kitchen cabinet on a warm day, or a south-facing windowsill in summer, and let them dry for 2 or 3 days until they are snap crisp. If you have an oven and you want to speed it, set the oven on its lowest temperature with the door cracked open about 1 inch. Around a 150 degree is plenty, and dry the slices for 4 or 5 hours until they snap cleanly when you bend them. Not bendy, snap crisp. Once they are fully dry, you grind them. Use a small hand-crank coffee mill that you keep just for spices. No electric appliance needed. A mortar and pestle works just as well if you have the patience. Grind the dry slices into a fine powder. Store the powder in a clean glass jar with a tight lid. Kept dry and out of light, your ginger powder will keep for 1 to 2 years with most of its flavor. A single pot of homegrown ginger, dried and powdered, fills a pint jar of ground ginger. That is the equivalent of about 8 of those little $6 jars from the grocery store, or roughly $50 of grocery store ginger powder from a $2 grocery rhizome and a pot of dirt. That is the math. One honest word about ginger as medicine, because it is used for that as much as for the kitchen, and I want you to know the honest scope. Ginger has been used as medicine for at least 4,000 years. It really does help with nausea, the morning sickness of early pregnancy, the queasiness of long travel, the upset stomach after a heavy meal. It really does ease sore throats and the chill of a cold when steeped in hot water with honey. It really does help joint stiffness in the old folks when taken regularly. These are not folk tales. The medical literature has confirmed every one of them in proper studies. A cup of strong ginger tea before bed when a child is fighting a stomach bug is one of the gentle, real, useful remedies the old folks have always known. The one honest safety word I will give you. If you are pregnant, talk to your midwife or doctor before using ginger in large medicinal doses, a few grams a day, or strong concentrated supplements. There is some scientific uncertainty about very high doses in early pregnancy, though the normal cooking amounts you would put in a stir-fry or a cup of tea are completely safe and are in fact one of the oldest remedies for morning sickness in the world. And if you are taking blood-thinning medications, mention to your doctor that you cook with ginger because high amounts can interact. Normal kitchen use is fine for almost everyone. High medicinal doses ask for the same caution as any other strong remedy. That is the honest medicine word. Now I want to take a moment because here is where it all comes together. Look at what we have just walked through. A $2 piece of grocery store ginger, a wide, shallow pot of good, rich soil, 8 to 10 months of patient watering, 1 to 2 pounds of fresh harvested ginger at the end, from which you save a piece for next year's planting, dry the rest into a pint jar of ground ginger that lasts a year, and walk past the spice aisle of the grocery store from now on without paying it any mind. And next year, you do it again from the piece you saved, and the year after that, and the year after that. The store's $6 jars stay on the shelf. Your kitchen's jar of homegrown ginger powder sits in the spice cupboard. The cycle continues. One rhizome, one pot, one season, 1 year's supply, and the math compounds. Every pot you grow saves you about $50 in ginger from the grocery store. Run 2 pots, save $100. Send a jar of homegrown powdered ginger to your sister at Christmas, and she will know what she is holding when she opens it. There is no money for the spice industry in teaching folks that a $2 grocery rhizome becomes a year's supply in a pot of dirt. There is a great deal of money in selling $6 jars of ground ginger to every household in America twice a year. So nobody runs a commercial telling you that you can grow your own. The aisle stays stocked. The bottles keep selling, and a quiet handful of careful folks in every village in this country grow their own and never think about ginger at the store again. You can be one of them. So here's what I want you to do. This week, on your next trip to the grocery store, walk to the produce section and pick up a fresh ginger rhizome, the chunkiest one in the bin with the most visible eyes. $2 or $3. Bring it home. Set it on the kitchen counter for a day or two to let any cut surfaces callus over. Find a wide, shallow pot at least 12 inches across. Fill it with rich, loose potting soil. Plant the rhizome shallow, eyes up, half an inch under the surface. Water lightly. Set the pot on a warm, shaded windowsill or porch. Mulch the top with straw or leaves once it sprouts. Then forget about it for 3 months. Water it when the top inch of soil dries. Trust the plant. By midsummer, you will have a beautiful clump of green, grassy stems 3 feet tall. By late fall, you will have a harvest. And by next spring, you will plant a piece of your own ginger and never need to buy from the grocery store again. Tell me in the comments below, have you ever grown ginger before? And if so, what climate are you in and how did the pot do? And if your family has an old recipe with ginger, a tea, a cake, a stomach remedy, a Christmas cookie, share it. The old recipes are exactly the knowledge that gets lost when nobody writes them down. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been speaking of growing what you eat, I am going to show you the old way to grow tomatoes. The seed saving, the staking, the small habits that mean a single packet of seeds feeds your family fresh tomatoes from July to October and into jars for the whole winter. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, buy the rhizome, set the pot, and let the patient earth do the slow, rich work of turning $2 into a year's supply. That is how it has always been done. That is how it still is in any kitchen that remembers. If this story changed the way you look at the simple items in your pantry, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history and the skills they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure will be opened soon.